Welcome to the Consultants Way podcast, your go-to resource for all things professional services consulting. Brought to you by McMahon & Ransford, a strategy consulting firm with over 30 years of experience helping B2B organizations achieve sustainable growth, and the Consultants Way, the leading comprehensive consultant development program. Hosted by Dean McMahon and Anthony Paluska, we share expert insights, firsthand experiences, and conversations with industry leaders on the topics that interest you most.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of their employer, company, or affiliated organizations.
Welcome back to the Consultants Way podcast. Anthony Paluska, Dean McMahon. Dean, how's it going?
Just super. Just a really great. I always give a weather update. I know. It's over. It's hot. It's weird. The next good weather update is October. But no, doing really well, and very excited about today's discussion.
Well, yeah, we were talking with our guest, and we were speaking in Celsius, but I can only really speak in Fahrenheit. It was 120 degrees heat index in Houston yesterday. So yes, quite warm here. But I just got back from some time away and other hot, humid weather, and so I came back to it, and it's all good here. But the conversation with Jacqui Morgan today it's a great discussion on some transformational work that she's done, refining the delivery organization at her within her company. And I really encourage everybody to kind of listen to the different pieces that they tackled and how ththose individual activities and automating those activities led to increased trust with clients, led to increased time to value, which I think is something that we always think about when we do this, improve customer satisfaction, and really it seems like brought the client closer to participating in driving to the outcome, and letting them go through that whole journey. And so she's taken a really deliberate approach to addressing all of those things, and I think there's a lot to learn from this discussion.
Yeah, I really like the practical things she does, right? They've done, and everybody can do those things. And one of the things she talks about a little bit at the end is something we talk about all the time is as you get your act more formal, in this case through AI, and as AI eats some of the administrivia, some of the technical, they're forced with being much more client savvy, much more client ability, and that leads to better outcomes, right? But the other thing she mentioned, as you said, is without the workforce even engaging to move to be better advisors, just the use of predictability, consistent messaging, taking out of the hands of individuals some things on onboarding and giving access to the project updates has caused a more intimate relationship. And that's fascinating. I wouldn't even have expected that. So that's good to hear about.
Yeah, no, and so yeah, she started with let's remove some of those tasks that are repetitive and not necessary for our team to be doing, so that they can do more higher value things, right? Do more of them and do higher value activities. Now they're on a journey of the next phase of how do we develop our team into having more of those consulting skills that we talk about all the time, so that they can manage the clients more effectively. And that comes with its own challenges and learning curves, as we've seen with our clients as well. And now they're shifting into, okay, how do we actually track and measure progress against some of that? So it's a very natural journey that will ultimately lead to not just more and better outcomes because of greater partnership and collaboration, but also because our team becomes a lot more effective at guiding a client rather than just doing the activities for them. And I think that's where most, if not all, organizations are headed. And excited to talk to Jacqui a little bit about it here and let her share with everybody what they've already started and are working on now. So we'll hand it over to the conversation with us and Jacqui. Hey, Jacqui, welcome to the show.
Hi Anthony. Hi, Dean. Thank you for having me on.
Of course. Excited to have you, and really excited to dive into the conversation today. Before we do that, we'll have introduced you a little bit on the front end here, but please provide the audience with a bit of your background.
Okay, so my name is Jacqui Morgan. I have 30 years of experience in financial services, largely change and transformation. Currently, I am the head of client delivery and global PMO. I have a very nice long title, but what that means in essence is I'm responsible for ensuring good, consistent, and governed services across the client delivery division, which is part of Accepta as part of a professional services team. And part of that key role at the moment is around transformation. Obviously, with the landscape of AI and people moving more to kind of outcome era, those kind of considerations. That's a big factor of what I do on a day-to-day basis.
That's great. And yes, a lot of organizations are moving in that direction. And not many of them, or not as many as they should, have somebody in a role like yours dedicated to helping solve the transformational aspects of how do we actually get to outcomes and how do we actually solve more of the customer's challenges. It's left to a lot of the organizations. So it's an exciting role for you.
Yeah, it's great.
So recently, and this is how we got connected with you. You gave a talk at the Propel conference a couple of weeks or months back at this point, and the title of that conversation was "The Most Human Thing in the Room." And just share a little bit about what that talk was about, because I think that does a good job setting the stage for the conversation we're going to have here.
Yeah, so it was part of a conference that was actually titled the Outcome Era. And I think a lot of people interpret what's going on at the minute with AI and all those kind of things, really focusing on automation, which is one part of it. But the role that I'm leading for Accepta is we wanted to do more than that. We wanted to take the ability to be able to standardize, make these things quicker, get better time to value for our clients, but use it in a way where we could actually engage much more with them and bring them much more into our project deliveries. So some of the things that we've done, for instance, is use AI to create standard materials for onboarding. So it makes a much smoother onboarding process for our clients. So as soon as they sign up to us, and these are big corporate banks, but they will get an email through the portal. They can log on there. There's an introductory video, and there's all the things that they would need as a base to set themselves up for the things they need to do. So I suppose for a little bit of context, Accepta is a data software supplier. So we basically take in data either structured or unstructured, and we can take that, turn that into reports, dashboards, put that in process flows for you. And we've put a lot of technology in there in terms of being able to manage things like tax and reconciliations, which is why we service all the large global custodians. So to make that kind of process better for them, I've looked at how we can standardize that, how we can get information into their hands of the things they need to provide us, because with any data project, the software is only as good as the data you provide it. So it's like you buy an Excel from me. If you don't have data and you don't know the processes and you don't know how you're going to use it, it's not particularly great, and it's not a great experience to do that onboarding process. So that's kind of one of the things that we've looked at. And then the other thing really is opening up our projects to them. So we've been quite brave in the fact that we now have a portal that they can look in and see real time where we are with all the deliveries. But we build those out now in such a way that they are two-way. So it's all the client tasks are in there, all our tasks are in there. They can see at any point in time where we are. And I think that really builds trust with clients. And that's what we was looking for. That's kind of one of the key values that we have at Accepta is all around trust. So we want you to trust the services we provide, but we also want you to trust us and how we're going to implement these things for you.
Thanks for providing the context on kind of how your business operates and where you play. Can you help build on that comment of trust a little bit? Was that the primary reason for going on any kind of delivery transformation at all, right? Were we dragged there because of our market asking for something different, or were we looking ahead as an organization and saying we have to do a better job of building trust and driving outcomes and differentiating ourselves in that way? What was the push versus the pull of actually going on any of the the journey of trying to change the way we deliver it all?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, so I've been in the organization for 5 years now, is Accept has only actually been going for around 13 years to give it some context. And we have grown massively in that time. So they started with 5 employees, we now have 300. And we have quite a large professional services team, but it's split across regions. So we're across Singapore, Cape Town, 2 offices in the UK as well, and New York. And part of that means that growth, and that quick growth means we've all gone off in our own tangents and our own way. So I might get a very different service in the New York office than I was potentially getting from UK. And the organisations that we're dealing with would be the same across those, So one of the big banks, that they've got a presence there equally. So they would expect to have the same level of service. So part of it was the kind of the less exciting piece, which is around standards and governance and making sure we're kind of uniformed in what we're doing. But as soon as I started to look at that, I could see the opportunity then for actually, okay, that's one piece of it. But the other piece is actually, how can we then take that forwards? So how can we make things work in such a way that we get time to value to them much more quickly than we were previously? So they start to get value out the license fees they're paying for. They start to use our systems more. They start to enjoy it, adopt it, those kind of good things, rather than waiting for a much longer onboarding time than they had. So there was that part of it. And then the other part I was finding the friction sometimes was, as I was mentioning, clients needing to understand that we have dependencies on them, that we need the data. So by us forming the projects and managing them in this way, it's very transparent. They can see where we are without what we're delivering, but we can both see it. So it's kind of become much more our projects to deliver as partners, as opposed to supplier client. And I've always been on the supplier side. So I've kind of seen this many times, and I've seen in the nicest way what a good client looks like, because a good client can really get good things out of the supplier if they work with you and, have that kind of partnership model, as opposed to a bad client that doesn't deliver on their elements, but, will catch you on yours if you're late at all. So I think it's helping with the relationships, and definitely we've seen our CSAT scores go up, month on month. They're improving, which is great.
And you think that's the, in addition to standardization and making sure we provide them more, but just the openness, you think, is driving that?
Yeah, because I think before it was very much us pushing information to them. So from what I've seen, pretty much in the last 12 months, we've gone from a model where we would send out big PowerPoint packs, we would send you the RAID log, we would send you all these kind of things. Now they can log on and they can see real time the RAID log. And I've developed things. Obviously, we've got Claude now, which has hugely moved the needle forwards for us. But I've set it up that it sweeps all the transcripts of all the calls that we have, any emails, and that pulls it all together, and that updates in real time as well what we're seeing as kind of key risks and actions and issues. And they're pulling out as almost like signals to us of things that maybe we should look at and worry about.
And are we pushing them all to them, or are we putting it just available for them to investigate?
It's all available in a portal. So they have a log on that, we use Rocket Lane as our professional services tool, and they literally can log on to that portal at any point in time. Some of the things I've built notifications so they know that there's an updated budget report, for instance, all those kind of things run on a weekly basis. I have done it so that there's a quality review point in things like that, because obviously, again, it's data and it's AI, and we're pulling information out and then presenting it back to the client. Those kind of things I want us to make sure we quality check before they're seen, because it could be someone's booked their time incorrectly, or an error in a calculation, that kind of thing. But the actual projects and the update of those, they can go in and see those at any time, and equally they can see the risks and issues being updated too.
And does that take the place of some steering committee meetings? Or
to your point on the steering committees, we have those, and again we produce packs that are automated, that very quick for us to stand up and get out in good time for everyone to circulate and socialize those, because obviously the execs on both sides aren't always as close to the project as the teams working on it. But all the lower level project meetings we have, we just pull the portal up now. So we do for an audit purpose, we'll do a summary of that, and that's noted, and we'll do a RAID log that's timestamps, those kind of things. But we just open the portal and we go for it together. And the clients have the ability to update their own actions as well, which I think they actually quite enjoy doing almost, because it's they'll come to the meeting and it's like, Jacqui, we've updated these 5 items. It's that kind of thing. So I think it just makes them feel part of it, that they're able to tick off stuff in the same way that we do.
Yeah, the automation, and then what you're able to do with all of that information to, like you said, drive better or quicker time to value. Um, Obviously, it's increased your customer satisfaction because they're able to feel like they have access to information in real time at the tips of their fingers, and they're participating in the process. And so all of that is wonderful as an outcome. I think when others have gone through a similar journey like this, or at least tried to address parts of it, there have been two big concerns that they have going into it. And I'm curious if you had these concerns and how you might have addressed them. Concern number one is, by doing all of this, we miss out on the excuses or opportunities to manage the client relationship and build that tight thing, because we've automated a lot of the things that otherwise would have been a project checkpoint where we can go in and we can have a deeper conversation about the things that they're working through, right? And you've already touched on that one a little bit, and so that's one is um, getting rid of those client touch point opportunities in exchange for efficiency. The other one is our consultants and our PS team needs time to think through those notes and to digest them and to understand them and interpret it based on their experiences on what this actually means about what we need to do different or unique for this client to make sure that they're successful quickly. And by doing this, we don't want to outsource the thinking. We want to outsource the repetitive activities. And so the client management piece and this risk of outsourcing thinking, did you have those concerns going into this with what you decided to automate or go through this process, or did you try and mitigate that in any way?
So I suppose for me, the bit that we haven't amended are the client touch points. So we still have exactly the same meetings that we used to, but it's just that we don't email them so much in the same way. So we tend to have, I think we probably tend to have better quality conversations now, because we've got a lot of the information there already and they've seen it.
We're not just reviewing a task list with them anymore. We're talking to them about the implications of some of the things that we already know about. Yeah.
Yeah. And to your point, as a delivery manager or project manager, the high value work there is building those relationships, understanding, looking where the risks are, how you're going to mitigate those. And in all honesty, and I think most organizations are the same, we tend to go quite lean on what we might need in terms of project managers. So at any one point in time, you might be managing across several projects. And where we were so PowerPoint heavy and, all those kind of things, we're taking probably almost like at least 50% of your week would be producing packs, updating things, making sure everything's in order before you send it, all those kind of things. It's actually kind of made us, I suppose, our admin is probably better because we're on it all the time. So it's just smaller changes. So we literally will have the system open all day. And as we have our daily stand-ups with the team, we're all updating it, those kind of things. So we did have a few teething issues at first. And that's where obviously you would get clients asking you questions more than you would, I suppose, immediately because they could see this stuff. But now, I suppose it's a learning curve. One, we've kind of learned, okay, think of it from a client's perspective. If you're writing a comment in there, it needs to be something they can understand and is meaningful to them. But then I think that's helped us as well, because if we're presenting at steering committees, we're now in that mindset all through the month as we're delivering. So I think we then present better to people that might not have been in the weeds all month, can come in at a higher view, and we've kind of got a better standalone pack now that kind of speaks for itself.
What if any has it changed about the role that the individuals play and the skills that they need to be an effective consultant, right? Because for so long, having good PowerPoint creation skills at a lower level becomes a really valuable asset to have. But as that gets outsourced more and more to Claude and other tools, right? How has that changed how you think about the skill mix needed for your team?
I think there's two sides to it. So, as part of my very long title, the bottom half is global PMO. So, I do run the PMO team, and they've gone through a significant amount of change because their role was entirely admin heavy, and I've pretty much automated what was a good 80-90% of it, right? Which it means now our month ends we finish in an afternoon, whereas it used to take us a week to finish a month end. Um, but I now embedded those so they now work directly for the project managers across the team. So their role has changed, but they were both aspiring project managers anyway. But now they get to really understand the data more because they attend the project meetings and they're part of that, and they're seeing actually that number that I saw that maybe we didn't get our revenue this month, actually understand the rationale behind that now because I'm spending more time with the project managers, and they're able to then present the data much better in a more a lot more information behind it. So it's a lot richer when they present it back to the senior management team as opposed to just numbers. It's numbers with a good understanding of why they are with that. So there's that side of it. And then so that they've had to obviously upskill a fair amount because they now need to like work with the PMs. Luckily, they're absolutely both really enjoying it. But on the other side, for the project managers, I think we could probably all fall into a little bit of a bad habit of thinking that we've done a good job because we've documented something and sent it out, and that comfort blanket is disappearing. So now it's more actually I've done a good job because I've mitigated a risk really well, or I've built a really good relationship, or I've spoken to a client about what's next. We've delivered this to you so well. What are we going to do together? What's our next thing that we're going to work on? So they're the kind of things. So it's leaning much more now into the relationship and more forward thinking, I suppose. Maybe a little bit more about being a bit more strategic in terms of where we go with our clients around those kind of things, which often was more left to the sales or the CSM teams, like our client services team. We now, as a delivery professional services function, can spend more time building those relationships as well.
Yeah. How if at all have you measured that? You mentioned CSAT and that being a mechanism for that, but right, rather than in the past, right, that team, as you mentioned, judged their productivity and effectiveness based on I completed these activities, right? Now it's the things you were just saying, right? Relationship and some of these other, and you mentioned trust earlier in the conversation. How are you thinking about measuring that to track and see if people how they're performing against these new standards you have for them?
Yeah, and that's a good point. And to be fair, that's kind of the next point on my roadmap. So we've put people through a lot of change, in quite a short space of time. So I think that's one thing to be mindful of actually is with so much going on. So last year we were looking at Copilot and we were looking at how we're going to work with that, and then Claude came in and it completely changed the way that we were looking at the landscape of how we worked. So yes, there are measures to that. One of the things that we have done is we've just run, and we did it as a whole team. Every other week, we did 2 hours of, I call it more like soft skill business training. So we run that where, and again, it was important that we were all on the team. So the consultants that actually do the configuration work were on those calls, as well as us. And we'd actually written the training materials with the trainer, like we'd had him input into that. But it was more around now, how do we manage messages with clients better? How do we start to build better relationships with them? So we've kind of paused on that side to get people upskilled. And then as it's now our end of year, we're looking at new objectives. So we're looking at actually, let's set objectives as a whole team around some of these things that are, to your point, how do we measure the success of how we're building out that relationship now? Are there things that we could look at in terms of incentivizing people because we've sold extra services as opposed to just waiting for sales or CSM to do that for us? So I think it gives people a different career trajectory potentially that they can have. And I think we're going to find actually a lot of the lines start to get blurred between your traditional sales, CSM, professional services teams. Because I think with us all having the data in the same way, it kind of starts to put more of a level playing field there, I think. So for instance, we take the information that our CSM team have into our system now. We've integrated that. Likewise, they take ours, and likewise, we take data from Salesforce. So we can see where all the opportunities are. We can see what the client sentiment is at a kind of servicing level, and we can see what the client sentiment is at a project level. And all three teams are able to see all that data.
Yeah. No, and I think you're right. I think there is a blurring of those lines that starts to happen. And as you know, right, we spend a lot of our time focusing on helping organizations with some of those soft skills, those consulting skills, and developing those. And and I think you're right, right? Tracking and measuring those becomes a little bit more subjective, right? And understanding what that looks like, but setting the expectations as you've done and managing people to kind of growing into that role so that they can play the clients don't want six different people to talk to, right? And so if we have access to information and they trust the relationship that they have with whatever department, that person needs to know how to manage the client relationship, knows how to push back on certain situations, knows how to pull in the right resources internal, knows how to actually kind of manage a program more so than just execute on the activities that happened in the past. And that's kind of a big evolution that I think the entire industry is going to end up having to go through as there's this convergence of all these post-sales functions.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot more opportunity to be client intimate, client all the what you call soft skills, we might call consulting skills, but a lot more opportunity to grow if you want to.
Yeah.
So all of this journey has opened your eyes to another problem or thing that you're out there now doing a lot of work around with the Ambition Collective. So maybe spend a second talking about what that is and how that was kind of born based on a lot of the work you've just talked about and doing some of the transformation at Acceptor.
Yeah, so it's a community that I'm pulling together really of women that are in professional services or in tech. You know, as I said, I've seen lots of change. I've been doing this for 30 years now, and I think women particularly are very scared of things like AI. So when I have all those kind of conversations, either at networking events or with my girlfriends, I'm really surprised by how few of them have actually tried to use AI in any kind of meaningful sense. So they might have asked for a shopping list or something, or got it to do it like a, tell me what my emails are I need to look at today. But in terms of actually using it to change the processes or think about actually how can I use that, as I was saying earlier, I think it can be such a leveler, not just across teams, but traditionally, women used to take all the notes in meetings. We've not been taking notes for like a last year. You just put the transcript on, all those kind of things. But then that frees you up then to be much more part of those conversations. And there's so many more things that we could do with that. So I always say that I'm not a technical person, even though I've worked in fintech forever, because I think most projects are best led by business people. So my background as well is I've run large teams. So I used to run a team of 100 people in the UK and in India, and so I kind of know all those operational issues. And me as a manager, what information I'd need, what data would I need to be able to make decisions across those I'd need to do quite quickly, those kind of things. I wouldn't necessarily always have the technical skills to be able to build that. But now with something like Claude, because you can talk to it in such a human way, and I think women often as well feel silly asking for, what does this mean? Because I was talking to our HR director. She's like, I don't really understand what SaaS is. We're a SaaS organization. I mean, she doesn't need to. She's a HR director. But I think there's always an assumption that everybody understands what all the terminology means. And I think women often are worried to ask about that. So I'm starting to build out some programs and some guides and some online support and help for people that gets them started and not coming at it from a technical level. Because there's a lot of people doing AI training, but that's very much around, this is what a project is in Claude, this is what co-work is, all those kind of things. I do cover that, but I talk about it much more in how you can use it in terms of leadership in your role and how you can think about it and the kind of things that I was just talking about, how can you use it to get closer to your clients How can you use it to manage your team better? It's all of those kind of things. And I think if I'm sure men do think about these kind of things too. But obviously, I'm coming from the female perspective. But I now sit and ask Claude questions that I would never have asked a human being, because I think, oh, I wouldn't want to ask that in a meeting. But I can happily sit here and ask and tell it to explain it to me, like, I know nothing. And then most of us aren't stupid people. You can then start to join the dots. So the fact that I've built a dashboard that I've launched that's got a front end that connects into APIs, like I wouldn't have dreamt I could have done that 6 months ago. So, and I worked it through, make it performant, make it secure, all those kind of things, because I asked it what are the things I should be thinking about. So I would say as well, as with anything, we have to challenge, because it does tend to gaslight you a little bit. It does tend to tell you every idea you have is amazing. And
Wait, hold on. Every idea I have is not amazing? Oh my gosh.
I mean, some of them might not be, I'm sorry, but
Wow, you really ruined my whole AI relationship now. It's the only relationship I can depend on, but okay, fine.
I know, I do like the fact that I can just turn it off if yeah. But I did a presentation to the managers a couple of weeks ago, and I'd been working on it with Claude, and I'll be entirely honest, I was doing it side of desk. It was one of those things that I'd been asked to do at the last minute, so I was rushing through it. And then when I started to present it, I was thinking, oh, the messaging here isn't quite right, and it didn't land as well as it could have done. So I had the meeting, come back, and I literally went straight back into Claude and said, just on the presentation, I don't think it went very well for these reasons, I think. And it kind of came back and went, yeah, you're right, it wasn't very good. I thought you wrote it. So this is why
Yeah, normally it's
you
only
can't just,
attorneys that will later on, after you've paid them, say, yeah, that wasn't a very good document, even though they created it.
yeah.
But now Claude's got that freedom, yeah. But I do agree that two things you said that I think are monumentally important. One is it only becomes really valuable when we apply it to the jobs, right? And I love asking questions like you do. I'm a very interested in obscure information and stuff, but and we need to brace ourselves into that new world, and we need to force ourselves into that journey. The other thing you said, which I think is really good, and y'all mentioned it earlier, is to have a guide to help us with this, someone who is looking after our broader interest and helping us, because we're all busy, right? We're all doing things, and not everybody's as interested in the finding the answers to the tech. And another thing you haven't mentioned that I like about the way you're doing this is, when we have experts, they don't always want to teach others, right? Because their value systems around their expertise. And I'm not judging them, that's just the way they live. This allows us to pull that out, get it organized, and therefore let other people come along faster.
Yeah, yeah, entirely. So I think from a career perspective, I think that's going to be interesting, because I think one, that's probably going to move more to outcomes based too, because it shouldn't be about time anymore, which could actually be quite a freeing thing for women. That's something we've always often struggled with childcare and all those kind of things. And if I've had two children, so I've spent years doing calls from the school car park and all those kind of kind of good things that you do. So and I think women can be quite very outcome focused, because you want to get out, you want to get home, you want to get the dinner on, those kind of things. So I think there's that piece, that when we present ourselves for jobs, it definitely needs to be more like, what can we deliver, what problems can we solve for you. And I think now with AI, you can solve a lot of these problems. So there's nothing to stop any of us really walking in and listening, taking the data, taking those calls, playing it back into Claude, getting a process flow mapped out. That's kind of how I started. So I didn't start with a solution at all. I started with, here's how I see what the problems are, here's the things I'd like to solve, and then kind of chipped away at them one by one almost. So I kind of had a overarching, this is where I can see we can get to, but it was almost like, okay, what's my low hanging fruit that I can pick off that just takes time, that's a bit of a nuisance? What are the bits that we can do that actually can move the needle with the client? What are the bits actually that can make the work more interesting for our teams? So, and I work with a technical team, they love playing with AI, so I've been able to give them mini projects to work on as part of transformation alongside doing the client work. That's almost been something that we've used as an incentive for people. So if you were, one of the highest performing people on the team that month, you got to work on the next initiative. So that was kind of a real, good thing for people to do as well. So we're a small team, so I don't never want people to think that it's about replacing their roles. It's about, for us, doing more valuable work, and therefore then you hopefully will then drive more revenue with your clients as well. So that should be our goal. I appreciate that's not going to be the same across all industries, but a company like ours, that's definitely where our focus is.
I think that's great, and it's the right attitude to have towards all of it, and I think that's ultimately where it all lands, right? Which is this is a value add and an enhancer, not a replacement for a lot of the work that we do, whether that frees us to do higher value things or frees us to do more of the same kinds of things. Either way, there's there's growth associated with it, not replacement. So Jacqui, this has been a great discussion here. I'll ask you to leave the audience with a couple of key takeaways, something that you shared that you want everybody to remember, whether that's about kind of leading and driving some transformations, or as an individual that's seeking to do some of these, try out some of these new tools for the first time. What would you suggest?
I suppose I would always say, for anything professional services consultancy, our first and main target is around clients, and it's client satisfaction, it's client trust, it's client delivery, it's all of those good things. So AI or any other innovation tool that comes along should be used as something that supports us to provide better services to clients. So that should be where we kind of focus our energies, not on just, producing packs. That's not the aim of it. It's also, okay, well, how can I do that to get better benefit out of it? And then for the other side of it, obviously the piece that I'm building out for the network is definitely just give these things a try. There's no harm if you can set Claude up on your phone if you don't have it at work, or Copilot, or any of those, and just start to think about, what's my problem. So start with it from there. So don't almost like ask it to do something, but start by saying, right, here's the thing that's bothering me at the moment. It might be, here's something that takes up all my time, or here's something that's a constant risk to us. How could we better manage that? And then you'll start to work through it and start to get answers there. But keep going back and keep asking more and more questions of it.
That's great. And if they want a guide to help them through that journey, how do they find you and your group?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Pinterest, I'm on Instagram. So it's theambitioncollective.co.uk. I've just set up my website, so that will all be live. So I'm gonna kind of launch it this weekend, actually. So yeah, I've had a bit of a rebrand, but yeah, so that's all going to be live. I have written a Getting Started with Claude guide. I have written an AI and agency guide, which is really for, as I say, how to lead, use AI for leadership. So I've put all that together. They're all, free to download on my LinkedIn. So
Perfect. Well, thank you. Thanks for joining us, and for the great discussion, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
okay,
Thanks so
lovely.
much.
Thank you.
Well, a great conversation with Jacqui there. I think she shared a lot for everybody to think about, whether you're an individual looking to just adopt some of these tools for the first time, or you're a leader that is thinking about how to roll something like this out within your organization. Like we mentioned on the front end, and we talked a little bit with Jacqui about the problem we're working on all the time with our clients, is that leveling up of their consulting skills so that they can take better advantage of applying some of these new processes and tools, and making sure that they're managing clients effectively. And so if that's a journey that you're on and you're trying to solve for, I encourage you to go check us out at consultantsway.com, and we could share a lot more information about what it is that we're doing to help drive consulting skills transformation in our clients. If you want to hear more like this and want to have listen to other conversations between us and great guests like Jacqui, follow us and like us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you want to reach out to Dean or I to discuss anything that we talked about here today, or make suggestions about future guests, our LinkedIn page is the best place to do that. Or you can always find us at podcast@consultantsway.com, and we'll be sure to get back to you quickly. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next time.